Okay, well, I'm happy to be here with you, John. We were talking a little bit about libertarian politics and how there's three types of libertarians.
No, three types.
What are the three types of Republicans?
The main groups of Republicans that I am able to identify, those that are excessively or thoroughly patriotic. They have an allegiance to the symbols of patriotism, flags, pledges of allegiance, national anthems. The second major group are those who are religiously oriented, and they have a desire and a preference to see what they view as right and wrong from their view, usually of the Bible, espoused in law. And the third group of Republicans, the smaller of the three, are libertarians that want strictly and in all areas less government.
How do you feel about Donald Trump? I understand you were actually a delegate at the convention.
I was a delegate to the National Convention of the Republican Party in Cleveland, Ohio. I do not know Mr. Trump personally, and all of the nominating issues were decided prior to the convention, so there was very little for me to do at that time.
But you did pass out some leaflets about the new idea that you had about immigration, insured immigration, which is brilliant. I have to say, it could be the solution to this whole thing. Why don't you explain to us what is insured immigration? And how did you come by this radical new idea?
Well, I don't think it's terribly radical, but it is to some degree a new idea as far as I'm aware. The concept, and I'm from the smaller branch of the Republican Party, the Libertarian section. And insured immigration is, so far as I can understand it, a libertarian solution to the immigration problems that America is facing today.
Let's talk about libertarianism for a moment. You know, some people have an emotional connection to the government. Is that logical? Shouldn't we be looking towards smaller units of self-sovereignty?
Well, governments have always, so far as I'm aware, elicited and cultivated an emotional relationship between the rulers and the ruled that allows them to quietly take taxes, quietly put people into the military who will sacrifice their lives for their emotional relationship with their chosen government or their default government. And this emotional relationship with government minimizes or completely prevents a rational relationship with government. Most libertarians want a rational, intelligent, logical, and therefore limited relationship with government. And those who have emotional relationships with governmental entities, whether it's a church or a political entity, tend to not look logically at some issues. They don't seem to choose to look objectively at some issues. And libertarians promote a more objective view of government.
And getting back to immigration, why is our immigration system so broken right now? Is it because people don't enforce the laws? Because the governments don't enforce the laws?
Well, the first part of your question is, how did we get in the mess that we are apparently in? It's because America, with a basically free enterprise system with some highly objectionable modifications, is economically successful. And many places in the world are not as economically successful, do not have the material gains that America has. And my understanding of most immigrants, they are coming for opportunities to participate in the material gain system that America has. Some may be legitimately freeing personal, political, psychological oppression. I'm not very familiar with those, but I know a great deal of people in Texas who have come there seeking more economic opportunity. So I would say economics is a big draw, and when people want something bad enough, they will find a way to get it. And if that means circumventing the American immigration laws, then that circumvention will very unhappily occur.
Is there a free enterprise solution to the immigration problem?
There is what I would call a libertarian solution, and that is a minimalization of what the government's role is, not an elimination, but a minimalization. and privatizing immigration. The key is if a person wishes to immigrate under insured immigration to the United States, they would obtain at their own efforts a sponsor, and that sponsor could be an insurance company, an individual, a church, a labor union, anything from the Rotary Club to Allstate Insurance. And they would approach this assuring sponsor who would then guarantee at the sponsor's financial risk the good behavior of the immigrant. If the immigration liability is sufficiently large, I believe the sponsor, who would get a fee for their sponsorship from the immigrant, would check out an immigrant sufficiently thoroughly to eliminate the risky immigrants who do things like 9/11 or other bombing activities.
So there'd be thorough background checks, but it would be done under the auspices of these private organizations.
If I were to insure someone as their sponsor, and I do not have the financial wherewithal to qualify, but if I were to do that, I can guarantee you I would know that individual very well. Even the adage is I would know that individual's grandmother's maiden name. I'd know everything about the family, their behavior, the risk, the education, the skills, the capabilities, the predilections, and decide for myself and for the applicant sponsor whether or not I wish to insure him.
And churches could get involved, and they could even make stipulations like no drinking, no smoking, things like that.
Whatever sponsor the immigrant approaches and the sponsor agrees to the sponsorship could make whatever rules of private life they wish. And if the immigrant doesn't like that, then they can go seek another sponsor. If they wish to sign up with Hard-Shell Baptists, there's not going to be any drinking or gambling. If they wish to sign up with, and I'm making up a fictitious organization now, the International Organization of Dutch, maybe they could smoke a little weed. Maybe they're going to have an economic benefit in being the next Van Gogh. But that predilection toward dangerous chemical infusion would have to be very closely monitored to make sure there's no adverse impact to society in general, no automobile driving or anything else.
What about if this plan were partially accepted, partially implemented? Do you think it has to be an all or nothing, or could it be partially implemented?
Well, I'm not sure what the limits are that would define partiality. If you were to say that it's partially implemented, does that mean that the sponsor only pays for respiratory acts?
No, I mean that we do the insured immigration, but at the same time, immigrants and migrants come here under other auspices, like they're coming right now.
Well, they're coming right now without a backer, without a sponsor, and if you will allow me, in many instances, without a guiding hand to make them amenable to American culture, American society, American law, and American courtesies. And I think a guiding hand is very important so that a person from a different culture doesn't run afoul of American culture and become a disruptive force, even if it's innocent. So I think a guiding hand is quite important.
There could even be Latino organizations that sponsor people from their home countries and things like that.
That's true, but understand, if this is insurance, you can have a family that provides perhaps the basic first, perhaps $10,000 worth of coverage, and then the family could, at their expense, obtain reinsurance for greater risk. Reinsurance is a well-established aspect of insurance industry.
Has this proposal seen any traction amongst politicians, policymakers? Have they caught on to it at all?
When I was at the National Convention in Cleveland in 2016, I distributed some 600 or 700 flyers promoting this. And I got more response from the media that was covering it because some of the media individuals covering that convention were foreigners. And they were surprised and hopeful of the prospect of this idea being adopted. As far as the politicians themselves, they were not quite as responsive. I think it was too new an idea for them.
Predictions for 2020. I assume you've seen some of the clown show that is the Democratic debates. Speak straight, stand up. What do you think is going to happen? Are they just going to shoot themselves in the foot and give Trump another 4 years?
I think the most visible Democratic candidates for president of the United States at this time are doing what Democrats have been traditionally doing, in my viewpoint, for the last 50, 60 years. They're trying to buy votes with welfare checks.
Literally, some of the times, yeah.
And the more that they can offer in giveaway programs, whether it's free college tuition or don't worry about it, the government will pay for it, health care, or whatever other giveaway programs that Democrats may come up with, they will expect and perhaps receive votes based upon those giveaway promises. And I don't see any of them attracting a mainstream following from good, hardworking, tax-paying American citizens. Those are the ones that have to pay the bills for these giveaways.
The Obamacare was such a joke because I was working 6 days a week. I was working one job, but in order to pay for everything, I was working 2 shifts a lot of the days, and it just put me over the limit. And because, okay, so you're paying $800 a month for rent, you're not going to want to spend $200 a month on health care. So I didn't have health care. And then they fined me, couldn't get my income taxes back to return to Ecuador. So a lot of the stuff that they promise, it turns out to hit you in the pocketbook, but that's nothing new. I want to thank you for coming and speaking with me today, John. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we could do this again sometime.
Fine.
Thank you, my friend.